Washington, D.C. Signing off.
Rate 29,950 mega symbols per second, standard DVB-S2, modulation APSK, audio PID 510. We wish you good reception conditions.
Hello and welcome to a new broadcast coming to you from Radio Romania International Studios in Bucharest. I'm Vlad Balco in the newsroom. Let's look at the top stories today. Nearly 2,900 new cases of SARS-CoV-2 were reported on Tuesday in Romania. Unionists continue their protests with the government's salary policy, and the draft budget for 2021 is still under debate. 2,877 new COVID-19 infections have been reported in Romania in the past 24 hours out of the 28,000 tests carried out nationwide, the Strategic Communication Group announced on Tuesday. 97 fatalities have also been reported, and roughly 8,000 people infected are being treated in hospitals, out of whom 1,002 in intensive care units. Over 700,000 people have been infected on the Romanian soil since the outbreak, and 90% of them have been cured. However, the number of those infected with the new strain, initially identified in Britain, is on the rise, and some experts believe the new form is to gain momentum in Romania in March. The national immunization campaign is in full swing in Romania, which currently is seeing its second stage. Romania wants vaccine certificates not to affect freedom of travel in the EU, Romania's Foreign Affairs Minister Bogdan AIRSPY said on Tuesday in a ceremony marking the launch of the 6-month Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union. Vaccination is voluntary, and this should be an important factor, the Romanian officials said. Minister AIRSPY pointed out that right now, vaccinated people arriving in Romania are not subject to quarantine. Portuguese Prime Minister António Costa favors the idea that European citizens holding vaccine certificates should travel freely. The idea is supported by tourism-dependent countries as well as Germany. The European Commission highly recommends member states to apply measures aimed at restricting circulation in order to urgently curb the number of travel-related infections and thus ease pressure on the healthcare institutions dealing with the pandemic. According to the Commission, tests can be done concurrently with implementing compulsory quarantine up to 2 weeks. Travelers can also be required to fill in forms on their journeys and contacts. The measures proposed by the EU executive are aimed at limiting the COVID-19 infections and also the virus's mutations. Leaders of the Social Democratic Party in opposition on Tuesday talked to the leaders of the main trade confederations about its alternate state budget, which the Social Democrats want to present publicly on Wednesday. The Social Democrats claim there are enough financial resources for investments and increasing salaries, pensions, even to accommodate the doubling of state allowances for children. The Social Democrats accuse the coalition government of promoting austerity policies and have promised they would also include the proposals of their social partners in their own alternate budget. In turn, Liberal Prime Minister Florin Câțu said the upcoming budget is based on a 7% budget deficit agreed upon with the European Commission. and will focus on investment and health care. The Prime Minister also said the government is working on modifying the laws on pensions and the single salary. Trade unions on Tuesday continued their protests against the government's social policies. Since the start of this month, unionists have been protesting in front of the presidency, the government building and various ministries, demanding a decent minimum wage, fair pensions, quality public services, the unblocking of collective negotiations, fair taxes, and the rightful enactment of laws. Protest actions staged by the Cartel Alpha Trade Confederation, one of the biggest in Romania, are scheduled until February 28th, and also include memorandums, notifications, petitions, or talks with MPs. The government in Bucharest says the demands should be taken under advisement in the context of the crisis generated by the COVID-19 pandemic, also considering the budget must observe a deficit of 7%. 6 in 10 Romanians, 59%, believe the diaspora's main contribution to the Romanian economy consists of money sent to families back home, while 21% say it is money spent during their visits to Romania, a recent survey conducted by a company specializing in online money transfers reveals. According to the survey, a Romanian sends home an average of 500 euros every month. Considering the income of someone working in Great Britain or Spain is approximately 2,000 euros. World Bank figures reveal that Romanians sent home some $7.2 billion in 2019, accounting for 3% of the country's GDP. Still, only 20% of Romanians believe people who've left the country contribute to the development of local economy by means of investments upon their return home. Moreover, 60% of Romanians believe people who left the country should return. And that was the news.
The government is working to complete the draft state budget bill for this year. According to the Prime Minister, investments and healthcare will be the main funding priorities. I'm Ana Maria Popescu with more details in this report written by Corina Crista. The government is working to complete the 2021 budget bill, bound to stay under a 7% of GDP budget deficit ceiling as agreed with Brussels. Preparations have been stepped up lately as the goal is for the document to be submitted to Parliament early next month when the parliamentary session begins. But with major expenditure triggered by the pandemic, the distribution of the limited funds available is rather difficult. The Liberal Prime Minister Florin Câțu asked the members of his coalition government for a list of key projects for each ministry so as to ensure efficient fund distribution, and says he hopes the talks with the main authorizing officers will lead to a balanced budget able to support economic growth. Investments and healthcare will certainly be the funding priorities, the Prime Minister said, and mentioned plans to amend the legislation on public sector salaries and pensions. Florin Câțu.
La legea pensiilor este vorba de contributivitate și asta este principiul de la...
The pension law must be based on the principle of contributions. That will be the starting point. As for the salary law, the point is to ensure more efficiency in public administration, tying salaries to performance. Apart from a clear hierarchy, we must also introduce performance indicators tied to these incomes. Under the current legislation, the pension increase scheduled for this year entails a financial effort of roughly 1.6 billion euros, and the reform of the public pension system, as designed by the Prime Minister, takes time and will have no effect on this year's budget. Romania's public budget is under huge pressure at present because of the need to comply with the deficit target agreed on with the European Commission. As the leader of the USR Plus Party, Deputy Prime Minister Dan Barna.
Vom vedea care va fi forma finală și cum vom reuși să ne încadrăm în situația.
We will see how the final bill comes out and how we will meet the deficit target agreed on with the European Commission. And in this respect, we will also see the amendments, if any, submitted by our parliamentary groups. This year's state budget must be balanced and must target development, investments and jobs. The President of the Democratic Union of Ethnic Hungarians in Romania, Deputy Prime Minister Kelemen Honor, said in his turn, we must be very, very efficient in spending the money from development, from the National Rural Development Program, from the operational programs, and from the large infrastructure operational program. Because the national budget will have less money available for investments than what citizens and the local authorities would like. The Social Democrats in opposition have drafted an alternative budget to prove that the country has enough money to provide massive support to the economy and to increase citizens' incomes. The European Commission demands predictability of vaccine deliveries following announcements by pharmaceutical companies that they will reduce the number of doses supplied. I'm Cristina Matescu with this report by Daniela Budu. The European Union says it will require pharmaceutical companies producing COVID vaccines on its territory to register in advance any exports to third countries. Moreover, the European Commission plans to create an export register to ensure transparency when it comes to the export of vaccines outside of the EU. The Union will also oblige pharmaceutical companies to respect the contracts signed for the delivery of COVID vaccines. These decisions come as pharmaceutical companies making these vaccines last week announced a significant reduction in the number of doses delivered to EU countries in the first quarter of the year. On Monday, the European Commission proposed updating the Council's recommendations on a coordinated approach to the restriction of free movement in response to the pandemic. According to a statement from the European Commission, this update comes amid concerns about the new, more contagious variants of the virus and an increase in the number of confirmed cases in many member states. The European Commission thus discourages non-essential travel while refraining from closing borders or imposing a blanket ban on travel. The Commission does not oblige member states to apply movement restriction measures, but firmly recommends such actions, saying the infection risk associated with travel must be urgently reduced. The Commission also insists on maintaining a functional single market and discourages blocking hauliers and cross-border workers, recommending the use of rapid result antigen testing in their case. The Commission believes coordinated action is needed across the Union with respect to measures limiting the freedom of movement within the EU. It has also proposed a new way of mapping the risk zones and stricter measures for arrivals from high-risk zones. The Commission believes countries must boost testing to find out more about the spread of the new strains, and says a well-coordinated, predictable and transparent approach to the movement of people and goods is necessary to prevent the spread of the virus and ensure safe movement within the Union. And that was Radio Newsreel. Coming up next in today's broadcast, it's Hit of the Day. Listen to Vang featuring Lydia Pobre with a piece called Come and Go. Care vrei ca sufletul de cel nu știu ce mai vreau dacă să plecăm. Da, eu chiar e cea care te cunoaște mereu. Așteaptă cu viață limba care oare acum ce mai vrei? You are listening to Radio Romania Int.
Focus on Romania. Inside Romania.
Welcome, I'm your host Elena Enoki. 100 years ago, there were 367 traditional hydraulic installations in the upper basin of Mureș River alone, with only 3 left at present that form part of museum collections in Reghin and Sibiu. Scientific researcher Dorel Marc, with the ethnography and 4-part section of the Mureș County Museum, had found not only mills but also many other devices made by peasants, which included in a study entitled The Traditional Technical Civilization and the Peasant Industries, Hydraulic Installations in Mureș area in the mid-20th century. The role of the miller in the life of the village is described in detail in the book. Dorel Marc. This craft that became in time a genuine folk industry can be found today only in the large open-air museums in Romania, such as Astor Museum of Sibiu, Dimitrie Gustin Museum in Bucharest, and the museum in Siet Marmației. These tools are still remembered by our grandparents as some highly ingenious technical devices. They can still serve as inspiration for contemporary engineers. Research researcher Dorel Marc. First, there were the small hand mills. Then, by using the force of workers, these mills developed a lot in the Middle Ages, first in the boyars' households. In time, the peasants also earned the right to build mills in their own households. In the area of research, that is, the Mureș area, but also on Târnava, Dorel Marc found a number of particularities.
În 1956, când s-a făcut un sigur de stat al anului, că atunci o inventarire.
In 1956, when the Council of Waters made an inventory of the mills that were still functional, there were some 400 mills in the area, of which 236 with a hydraulic wheel, 55 with 2 wheels, and 5 with 3 wheels. But beyond the statistics, we must see milling as a phenomenon not only in economic terms, but also in social terms, since the role of the miller was very important in the rural community of the past. Many households became centers of traditional technical installations, in the sense that the same gutter which brought water to the mill's wheel was also used to activate timber cutting, needed for constructions, for whirlwinds and oil presses. So in addition to the fact that the mill provided bread and polenta for the family, this complex system of installations served the entire household. That was researcher Dorel Marc. The grinding mechanism consisted in two millstones, one fixed and one mobile, the latter having the role of rotating and crushing the grain. With the same mill, with the help of a separator, wheat and corn were ground, because with the help of a separator or screw, the moving stone was lifted from the fixed stone, and depending on the height, it gave the required granulation. The force of water, which pushed the last wooden wheel from the outside, was transmitted to the mechanism that guided the moving stone with the help of large belts, initially made of leather and later of rubber. The destiny of the miller families was sad during the communist period, as they were declared privileged and were persecuted. Their children were banned from attending high schools, so the tradition remained a story. Dorel Marc plans to extend his research in the future. I would like to continue this research related to the destinies of these millers, of these true owners who were spread all over Romania. The researcher wants to make traditional values a genuine attraction for tourists. It would be nice if tourists could see how wheat flour and corn flour are obtained with traditional mills, how seeds are crushed to obtain oil, how wool is washed only with the help of this centrifugal force, without detergents, without polluting the environment. Who knows? Maybe in the future ethnologists will be more involved in these actions aimed at reviving some crafts, because there are such initiatives from people who still adhere to traditions, who want to reconstitute some crafts. It is good to keep in mind that this should be done scientifically, so as to preserve their authenticity. That was researcher Dorel Marc. In time, the mills and the milling activity have changed, so that after 1990, in some rural localities, mechanized electric mills started being used, particularly in agricultural production cooperatives. But just as homemade bread is less and less popular, village households are using mills less for grinding flour or corn and more for feeding the farm animals. And that has been Inside Romania.
This is Radio Romania International. Cultural events.
Hello, I'm Cristina Matescu, and today we're looking at various exhibitions staged by the Bucharest Metropolitan Library, including one about how the winter holidays used to be celebrated in the capital city between the two world wars. Ioana Mezei, the director of the library, says the exhibition forms part of the still ongoing celebrations of Romanian Culture Day on the 15th of January. Romanian Culture Day is celebrated by the Bucharest Metropolitan Library until the end of the month. Events include an exhibition dedicated to national poet Mihai Eminescu, which forms part of a larger project carried out together with the Theatre of Romanian Drama. Another exhibition, staged outdoors in the courtyard of our headquarters in the center of the city, looks at postcards dating from the 1930s, all of which are inspired by Eminescu's work and were designed by a Polish graphic artist and illustrator called Leonard Salman. His 30-year study of Eminescu's writings resulted in over 200 images inspired by 99 of Eminescu's poems. These illustrations were used to create thousands of postcards in color, which were very fashionable among young people at the time. The Bucharest Metropolitan Library owns 2 series of such postcards. Some are numbered, others aren't, but all of them were printed by the Socek bookshops. Socek used to be one of the first big publishing houses in Romania. It was founded in the 1870s and closed in 1948. After the events staged by the Bucharest Metropolitan Library to celebrate National Culture Day, needless to say, many of them are also staged online. One interesting project, which takes place on the library's social networking pages, allows visitors to listen to young acting students and established actors recite poems by Mihai Eminescu. The project, says the library's director, aims to celebrate the country's national poet and remind people of the role of a public library, that is providing free access to culture. Ioana Mezei is back now with details about yet another exhibition held by the Bucharest Metropolitan Library and entitled Winter Holidays in the Bucharest of Yore. The library has an impressive collection of old and which we are now planning to promote through a targeted campaign, both online and through outdoor exhibitions. One such exhibition, which opened in December 2020, consists of 10 large photographs posted on the fence of the library's headquarters for all passers-by to see. The photographs capture old urban customs and traditions and events connected to the winter holidays, such as the decoration of the winter tree, the arrival of Father Christmas, the opening of presents, and New Year's rituals. In other photographs, we see children playing games in winter. The images were originally published in special supplements from 1925, 1926, 1927, and 1932 of 2 children's magazines, Universul Copiilor and Dimineața Copiilor. The Bucharest Metropolitan Library, which is named after one of Romania's greatest writers, Mihai Sadovanu, was founded almost 100 years ago.
Next in this program, sports.
Welcome to the Assist of the Week on Radio Romania International. I'm Eugen Mostan. In a fixture counting towards Turkish Championship's 20th round, Romanian footballer Denis Alibek scored both goals in the match 15th Kayserispor, won against holders Başakşehir Torneo. This was Kayserispor's first win since Romanian Dan Petrescu has become the team's head coach. Denis Alibek drew first blood in 42 minutes, with Brazilian Gustavo Campanaro providing the assist. Another Brazilian footballer, Pedro Henrique, provided the second assist to Denis Alibek, who scored for the second time around in minute 77. Alibek was replaced on the pitch in minute 79, thus succeeding his first Turkish Championship goal for his team Kayserispor, and Radio Romania International designated Alibek the athlete of the week. Denis Alibek was born in Mangalia, in the southeast, on January the 5th, 1991. He first played for Calatis Mangalia's junior team. Denis made his League One debut playing for Faros Constanța in 2008. He had a 5-year stint with international from Milan over 2009 and 2014. Then she was on loan for Belgium's Malines, Vito Constante in Romania, and Bologna in Italy. From 2014 to 2017, Alibek was signed up by Astra Giurgiu, the team with which he won Romania's League One championship in 2016. Denis Alibek emerged as an out-and-out scorer with no less than 32 goals scored in 65 fixtures he played for Astra. Denis got transferred to FCSB, where he played a single season with no remarkable achievements. Then Alibek returned to Astra Giurgiu. He regained the top shape that earned him recognition, being sought after by a couple of foreign clubs. Denis Alibek was scheduled to play for a Saudi Arabia team, but he opted for Kayserispor. The Turkish team was full of regulars, including two other Romanians, Silviu Lung Jr. and Cristian Sătunaru. For the Romanian national team, Alibek made his debut on October 11, 2015. In the 90th minute of the away game, the Romanian national squad won against the Faroe Islands 3-0. Denis Alibek boasts 17 caps for the national squad. And that's all from Sports Today. You can also access our sports items at alright.io and on Facebook.
You are listening to Radio Romania International.
Coming up next in the program, here is to the Romanian AIRSPY. Today we have prepared a fine selection of songs from Radio Romania's Golden Archive. For starters, there is a patriotic song performed by one of Romania's traditional music legends, the late Ion Dolănescu.
La cale de într-o casă cu mult strat și cu dărâri multe. Treci printre brazi și paci la coale de lângă turma de oi dragi și cântece multe. Mama, mama, trăiesc pe lume, nu am temer. Mama, mama, dorurile nu le iau seama. Mai sus când m-ai făcut verde, mi-ai pus doar naștere, nu
Ion Dolănescu had an outstanding career as a traditional music vocalist, which included loads of live performances where he was accompanied by some of the leading traditional music orchestras countrywide. Next up in the program, here is a very popular winter song from Ion Dolănescu's repertoire.
Dobra mândra de nodra, să-mi deschizi de porta, hei, de care care mă duc la ea, obosit cum îi putem să nu-i cogurgălă. Obosit și plin de apă, mă duc la ea că mi-e dragă, să nu-i cogurgălă. Eu te dumăiară, ne-am dumă la mândruța mea, că e dulce gurița, că nu e cu zârgălă. Că e dulce gurița, mă mai satur de ea, că nu e cu zârgălă. Mă mai satur de ea, că de cine se toca, că nu e cu zârgălă.
Ion Dolonescu was a very versatile performer. When on stage, he was very particular about the traditional costume he wore, as he was singing songs from Wallachia and Oltenia. Coming up next in the program, here is a love song performed by Ion Dolonescu.
De la crama cu măgine, ai pline de venine mai, de cadrență ca căretre, hai să nu-i riu, cât mai host ca satal meu. Strig la zi și bat la poartă, mândra doarme parcă-i moartă. Ești mândruță până afară, că-am venit și mă duc iară. Hai, că nu-i rău, cât mai mult ca satal meu, măi. Mândră, lasă-i pe dușmanii mei, că eu sunt și pe unde se întâlnesc, numai de mine vorbesc. Hai, că nu-i rău, cât mai host ca satal meu, măi. Dar eu tot am să le cânt, cât ai trăi pe pământ. Hai, că nu-i rău, cât mai host ca satal meu, măi.
Ion Dolonescu's output composed more than 3 million LPs sold. He was rated as one of the most famous Romanian traditional music vocalists of all time. You are now invited to listen to a merrymaking song from Ion Dolonescu's repertoire.
Thank you.
Merrymaking and sentimental songs were also part of the repertoire. We end this week's Full of Romanian with a signed love song performed by Ion Bolonescu.
E mai dormito, mai dormito, e mai dormito, mi sufletul tristat, iau și beau în păcăre. Inima mă doare, sunt în cer. Una mizeană, un pahar sticul lăutat, Una mizeană, un ușor sticul, vișor, merită să petrec să nu mai că vreau să-l golesc, dar cu paharul plec paharul e și beșet mă gură, din săr de coală bună e și beșet mă negât, din săr bună de mult e și beșet mă gură, dacă bei din cu măsură vină, să-l bei cumpătat. E și beșet mă negât, dacă nu bei din prea mult, să nu bei să-i păcat.
You are listening to Radio Romania Int. Next in the program, your names on the cover.
Welcome to a new edition on Your Names on the Cover series. I'm Odin. Age is just a number. That's what fitness mavericks and their spirited shapeshifters say about themselves, chaunting their six-pack abs and the infinite. But age is just a number for well-established poets as well. A 19-year-old poet has received a nomination as part of a noteworthy literary prize. Young literary critics do succeed in placing Romanian literature of the 20th century in the broader context of Southeastern European literature. Dorel Namsu has already reached the age of wisdom, doubled by a perfect maturity of his literary creation. It has always been a poetic character, which was proved by the articles contributed to various newspapers after 1990. Dorel Namsu's editorial debut occurred rather late in his life, at the end of 2020. Lost Words was brought out by the exclusive publishers in Craiova, a city in southeastern Romania. This is a debut during the pandemic. The launch event was not held as it used to be, just as his distinguished author would have fully deserved it. Yet the debut gave Dorel Namsu the opportunity to yet again meet his admirers among poetry lovers from Craiova, also thanks to the modern communication and social networks extensively used the world over. It could not have possibly been different for a poet whose verse had a strong emotional charge, and whose poetry is inspiring, stirring the profundity of feelings. Critical references on Dorel Namsu's poetry emphasize the fact that his poetry is in no way pontificating. It does not prompt people to ask questions, as Dorel Namsu's lost loves are not properly lost. They are present with a true century of his birthplace in the village of Rostan, like the foot of the AIRSPY mountains. The life the poetry volume encompasses is just like a leaf on the path. It is like a season of remembering. The debut edition of the young poet Dora Namchi's volume has rapidly sold out, making room for an impending new edition, a revised and an enlarged one. And until then, Dora Namchi was awarded the exclusive prize for literary debut. It is a well-deserved prize in the portfolio of a man who is equally special and fascinating. In late 2020, Lena Chilari made her debut with a volume titled A Cup of Novichok When You Are in Your Old Days, by the publishers in Bucharest. The volume stood the King of Bern Awards as part of the Alexandru Mușina Debut Poetry Contest in its 7th edition. 19-year-old poet Antonio Mizicescu's debut volume, Notes from the Kitsch Century, has received the Opus Primum nomination as part of the Mihai Eminescu National Poetry Prize. According to Antonio Mihăilescu, she has always tried not to impose boundaries on herself. Indeed, she has always set her objectives clear, but once taking into account the likelihood of not being able to make them. At any rate, Antonio Mihăilescu says she has never ceased to experience a kind of special joy, which began the moment she found out she was the winner of the Mușina Debut Poetry Award, and continued after the book was edited by the excellent Tracu Carte team, made of Teodor Bună, Alexandru Int, and Ioana. As soon as she learned that her volume received the nomination, Antonio Mihăilescu felt she was overwhelmed, saying she was extremely grateful to the judging panel. She says it all came like an ancient void, a dark-skinned landscape of thought. It is the moment when the guide is exhausted as he reached the zone. He sits down on an aerial bank and falls asleep. Well, he does not fall asleep, he draws his breath. The volume kind of exhausted the author. Perhaps it just doesn't deserve to say that as a poet, but that's pretty much the truth. The Young Writers Gala on January the 15th, 2021 announced its nomination for awardees in 2020. Among them, the volume titled The International Periphery, the avant-garde movements network in Central and Eastern Europe. Brought by the Romanian Literature Museum publishers, the book earned Emanuel Modoc the Young Critic of the Year in 2020 awards. First of all, the avant-garde of Central and Eastern Europe is included in the broader category of world literature. Then the notions of space, community, network are and the first part of the volume. The relational theory, which is applied to the concept of avant-garde, identifies the existence of imagined communities and that of interliterary communities. The peripheral dimension of the avant-garde in Central and Eastern Europe is twofold, and its coexistence and co-evolution are extensively explored in the first part of the volume. The second part of the book delineates between the notions of international, and transnational. A case study of the Romanian Bohemian avant-garde is provided, focusing on the One magazine and the Oratorul, the Flying Dragon literature. The survival of careerism in the Central Western European sphere is analyzed, being then placed in the broader context of internationalism. The third part of the volume explores four regional avant-garde movements: the Hungarian activism, realism, and the Polish formism, in which four concepts are being analyzed: that is the picture poem, the image poem, the pictorial poetry, and the photomontage. They are labeled as local inventions and transnational products. Eduard Modok's reaction when he learned that he was awarded the Young Critic in 2020 prize Quote, given that this year's previous edition and the edition before that, no prizes were awarded in the literary criticism category, one matter, I could break the barriers, all the more so as it was about to book, topic, to propose applications of several methodologies which, in the last decade, remaining critics only tackled from a theoretical point of view. I hope that, at least to some of the demonstrations of the volume, I succeeded to yet again what we just exploration of the literary domain has for long been shown, but also the exploration of an entire field of domains that has quite actually been rated as Paradeserta in the Romanian academic sphere. So there we go. When literary critics have nevertheless taken notice of, which is a good thing. It would come out of the scale of the book's initial assumptions if I had not said that just as the peripheral avant-garde movements developed based on networks, also networks from the faith networks to the advertising cross-promo in the most literal sense of the word, in much the same way the international periphery is the outcome of intense collaborative work, the readings, the reactions, the encouragement, but also the misgivings of my generation colleagues who at least equally contributed to the completion of the volume. Well, we do have several parts of substance categorizing of those domains. That can only be reassuring. End of quote. But just now for understood to this level in the stay tuned to our program, as there's more to come to you all in terms of Romanian literature, culture, and culture. I know you must stand over it. Bye for now.
Coming up next on Radio Romania International, Simply Folk.
To end this broadcast, let's listen to a dance tune called The Swing from Zernești, played by the Lăutari Orchestra from the Republic of Moldova, conducted by Nicolae Botgrov. And with that, our broadcast in English for listeners in Western Europe and Japan has come to an end. You can listen to our next program tomorrow at 6:30 on GBC on 7345 kilohertz in analog system and on 6040 kilohertz in the DRM system. Listeners in Japan can listen to our next program tomorrow at 23 hours GBC on 7320 kilohertz. We can also be heard on the internet at www.ri.iro channel 1. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write an email at